Welcome back to Chapter. Today we'll be going over Part 2, Chapter 2 of George Orwell's 1984. We start Chapter 2 with an immediate change in tone and language. It was a little more subtle at the end of Chapter 1, but if you didn't feel the absolute sucker punch that is the rose-colored glasses through which Winston is now viewing the world on the way to meet the dark-haired girl, I don't know what to tell you. The first thing that jumped out at me was that Winston knew the exact date, and this struck me as odd since at the beginning of the story he was lamenting the fact that he wasn't even quite sure what year it was, but suddenly he knows that it is the exact day. He knows exactly what day it is because he's off to meet his lady love. Also, pools of gold and misty with bluebells. Our boy Winston is feeling that bite from the love bug. Winston takes comfort in the apparent experience this girl has luring old men into the woods for illicit activities, so she obviously can be trusted. When the dark-haired girl finally shows up, Winston feels a tremendous sense of relief that she still is showing interest in him by showing up to do the horizontal tango in some bushes in the woods. But he also is displaying the self-doubt of a man who has not had an intimate experience with a woman without a upfront payment in a very, very long time. That's me trying to be subtle about prostitution, kids. Even as the girl is throwing herself at him, Winston does not immediately jump her bones. He relishes in the feeling of her, the warmth of human contact. He's been deprived and his needs for benign human touch suppressed for so long that he's just content in being in contact with another warm body. And only then does he think to ask her name. Julia. She already knows his name because that's not suspicious or anything. Winston admits to Julia his less than pleasant history with her, including the whole, wanting to rape and murder her 8 ways to Sunday. And Julia actually enjoys it. She enjoys it because that means her deception to the party is working and her own private rebellion remains private. So she had Winston convinced that she was this, party robot, when she's actually kinda not. And that's like a, good job, Julia, good job. Then she rips off her aforementionedly hilarious junior anti-sex league sash and gives Winston smuggled chocolate, when we know that chocolate rations have been increased from 3 to 2 or something. Julia reveals she was the leader of a troop of spies, works extensively with the Junior Anti-Sex League, and that she's good at spotting people who don't belong. She says as soon as she laid eyes on Winston, she knew he was against the party and presumably began pursuing him, as if she wasn't suspicious enough. Despite Winston privately hating the party, he has never been able to publicly or vocally admit to his opposition, while Julia spouts her disapproval and hatred of the party like it's totally casual conversation to be having while you're trying to hook up with a guy in the bushes. And this makes Winston uncomfortable because he's been a member of the party and been dealing with the effects of the party and has seen more about the party, presumably, than Julia, and doesn't feel as comfortable openly discussing his disapproval of the party as Julia does, because she's young and presumably naive and doesn't quite understand how the world works. Whatever, and Winston's this crusty old dude who's seen too much and knows what he has to lose. As things get more heated, Julia reveals that she's had relations with scores of party members, but never members of the inner party. Those guys are pigs. They're swine. They are unworthy of her golden lady parts. Winston is incredibly pleased by Julia's exploits because it means that other party members are committing crimes and the party is not as perfect as the facade that it is putting out there for the rest of the world to see, and is not living up to the own standards that it's setting for its own party members. It also gives him hope that there may be others like him that are questioning the party and looking for the absolute truth, and that perhaps the party can be rotted from the inside and taken down in an inside job. Winston proclaims his hatred of the party ideals of purity, goodness, and virtue, and his desire to have every person corrupt down to their bones. Now, this is a little, what I felt was a little bit out of character for him, because he just, in part one, was about finding the incorruptible, inalienable truth. And in this one, he's like, I want everyone to be terrible people according to the party. But now that I'm actually talking to you about it on video, it's not actually that out of character, because in order to shed the person who the party has made Winston to be, he must become everything in which he is not. And what is necessarily negative to the party may not be negative in a worldly sense. So I just proved myself wrong live on camera. Good job, Haley, good job. Julia reveals that she actually really enjoys sex rather than being repulsed by it, like Winston's wife, Catherine. And Winston realizes he doesn't just desire the love and companionship of another person, he desires that carnal, physical intimacy and that quality of enjoying that carnal union, because that's an attitude and a mentality that's going to bring down the party. So Julia and Winston do the horizontal tango, and Winston likens it to a political statement. They just suck the fun out of everything. This chapter shows Winston's rebellion against his long-term sexual repression, which, as I've said before, is one of the major themes of this novel. Julia is the person that Winston desires to be, tactful and calculating. Together, they might just start a revolution, even if it's just within Winston's mind. That's it for part 2, chapter 2 of Orwell's 1984. Thank you so much for watching. As I've said in my last couple of videos, at the end of this series I'll be making a bonus video that shows real-world connections between what's been going on in this novel and what has been going on in the world around us. So if that's something that interests you, or that's like a paper you need to write, or something you need to do part of your reading journal, or whatever it is you gotta do for school, because teachers love to do weird things with books, make you think, huh? It is a video I will be doing at the end of this series. It will come out after the last chapter of part 3, so look for that if that's something you're interested in. It'll be going over the current political situation in the United States, which I think by the time this video airs, we will have voted for a new president, which has not happened at the time I'm filming this, but that video could mean a lot more if certain people are elected, as well as various social and economic issues that are happening not just in the United States but around the world. So if that's something that interests you, look for that at the end of the series. Thanks again for watching. I'll see you next time.